The Buckeyes are in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center working out. The coaching staff is talking ball, and these are snap judgments. They are brought to you by Byers Auto. There is nothing better than that in the middle of February. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. What a treat in mid-February to pop in. Spring ball starts in 2 weeks, and we're already out here talking about Ohio State football, Bill.
Just trying to sneak a peek at the workout.
No, they're down there. They're grinding.
Yeah, I hear them. They're loud. In the middle of interviews, it became suddenly very difficult to hear what James Laurinaitis was saying because someone down there was screaming.
It just means there's some work getting done.
It means we're closer to spring ball, which is great. And it was nice to hear from a couple of guys that are new addition. Oh, I guess one. It's weird. Like there are new additions to the staff,
but they're not new.
One has been here for 2 years now, and one was here just 2 years ago. So they're not new. They are familiar, which I think is good for Ohio State. It was nice to hear Matt Guerrieri, who we never got to talk to when he was around here the first time. And then just like more perspective from James Laurinaitis on why he wanted to get back into or why he wanted to get into coaching in the first place and why this was a goal for him to like become a full-time position coach at Ohio State, which I thought was really interesting. But all I cared about was Sonny Styles and what both guys had to say about him, which was frankly not a ton. They both kind of deferred to Jim Knowles on what exactly Sonny is going to do this year. But I think both are ready to fight. I think for Matt Guerrieri to keep him in his room.
It's a good thing there was some media separating the two.
Yeah, and for James Laurinaitis, I think to get him into the linebackers room. So we'll see. I guess I leave here thinking that it's going to be some blend of the two, which James Laurinaitis kind of suggested, like we kind of need to create a new thing for Sonny to get him on the field with all the talent they have in the back end of the defense.
Those niche positions have done really, really well.
Well, that's the problem, right? Like that's as we get into the Sonny Jays.
Yeah. You don't want that. James Laurinaitis was artfully dropping little nuggets in there, like what's best for Sonny's future. He reminds me of Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons is a linebacker in the NFL.
Took the NFL a few years.
Took the NFL a few years. Like they know where James Laurinaitis knows where he wants him. Matt Guerrieri, who is obviously returning to Ohio State, has been here a month and worked with Sonny when Sonny was a true freshman in 2021. But like if one of those guys' voice is going to get to have sway, I would imagine it's James Laurinaitis. But as they both said, like this is Jim Knowles' decision, and Jim Knowles has centered his entire defense around being a safety-driven defense, and I bet he wants to keep Sonny Styles at safety.
Yeah, but where?
I don't know.
A fourth safety.
Can't figure it out. As soon as Berm realizes what year it is, then we'll figure out what position Sonny Styles is.
What year is it?
Well, this year's 2024, so Sonny was a freshman in 2022.
My apologies. It's still 2023 in my mind.
I'm just fact-checking live because it does make it seem like he's been here longer or that Matt Guerrieri's been gone longer. Like that's to the point that Bill's making. Like that's how recently he was here and why there's still some built-in institutional knowledge for Matt Guerrieri and why that's so important. But creating a position sounds great for Sonny Styles. And Bill said, where's he going to play at safety? He's not going to take a spot from Caleb Downs, I don't imagine. He's not going to take it from Lathan Ransom. We've seen him share snaps with Jordan Hancock. I don't know that that's the best use of either one of them. It just feels to me like it's inevitable. And James Laurinaitis, to your point, Berm's like walking down that road. It's like feels like physically he's going to grow into that position. In the NFL, that's probably where his future is. And Isaiah Simmons, Clemson did build a scheme around him, but that's a little bit different than the situation Ohio State's in.
It is, and it's also just a very different situation than Ohio State was in a year ago when you knew what you had at linebacker. And if Sonny Styles is a better option at linebacker than C.J. Hicks or Gabe Powers, then Sonny Styles has to play there because there is only one linebacker that has played at all on this team right now, and that's Cody Simon. And James Laurinaitis acknowledged he's probably not going to get a lot of reps in the spring because we have to see what these other guys can do. Now, the question is, can Sonny serve two masters in this spring 15 practice window and figure out if there's an opportunity to play both spots, or is it all about pushing him into one fit? And my personal preference, which obviously doesn't matter, would be that you put him at linebacker and you say, you got 15 practices to show us you can do this. And if you can't, then you can go back to other things. But you have freaky athletes like Sonny and like C.J. Hicks and Arvell Reese and Gabe Powers. Like you got to figure out a way to get these guys on the field. And I mean, that's why I asked James straight up, is the jack position even real at this point? And he said, yes, it is. But then
it's real in here.
But then he was like, but we're not really talking about that yet. Like, okay, so we're not talking about it again.
We can't go through this again.
So
another really spring and another offseason. I'm
it exists or it doesn't.
We'll get to the jack later on. No, I mean, it's got to. at some point it's got to be a now or never situation. They're either going to use it or not. If you can't use it with a collection of guys like C.J. Hicks, Arvell Reese, Mitchell Melton, I don't know, Josh Mickens, Caden Curry, like they have 5 guys who could realistically play that. You got to find a way to unleash that. But I thought it was really interesting because, Burnham, you said James dropped some hints there about Sonny Styles, but he also like kicked off the press conference like, in 2 weeks, spring ball starts, and it's a really big one for the linebackers. And all he named were Cody, Arvell Reese, Gabe Powers, and C.J. Hicks. And it's like they were not going to say Sonny in that group. I don't know if that was intentional or just like they don't really know.
I feel like that was intentional. Don't you feel like that was intentional? Like he was waiting for somebody to ask about Sonny?
I mean, he definitely knew he was going to get asked about Sonny. Yeah, I'm sure it was intentional because he doesn't. They're courting still. You don't want to put it out there. You don't want to seem desperate.
Speaking of courting, that's a guy whose name didn't get brought up. And we don't know
Williams.
The Court Williams situation. He's moved to linebacker officially last summer, hurt himself again. I don't know. I mean, his name wasn't brought up, so you can read into that what you will, but it doesn't seem like as a depth piece they're counting on that at the position either.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it'd be difficult to do that at this point, and that.
So it's just you have like nothing there.
I was counting them as James Laurinaitis was talking because I was going to ask a question about it, but I couldn't quite frame it the right way. They have 100 game snaps in the linebacker room aside from Cody Simon. I think it's 25 for Gabe Powers and 75 for C.J. Hicks.
That's not many.
It's not a lot. Now, C.J.'s played a bunch of special teams, and Gabe's played some special teams as well. And Arvell Reese played special teams, and that matters to get on the field and do something. But especially the nature of the linebacker position, I think you need to actually play a linebacker.
James did say that. He did talk about that a little bit. It's like there's no other way to do it at that position.
Yeah, which is why I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of Cody Simon, to your point, Berm, this spring. I did find it interesting that James Laurinaitis said that he wishes he would have played Cody more last year. I don't know at whose expense.
I think earlier is just what he meant.
Whose expense that would have come.
It seems pretty cut and dry that it would have been at Steele's expense.
Yeah.
Now, late in the year when Tommy was hurt, that's a different matter entirely. But it felt like there was maybe opportunities at Notre Dame specifically that come to mind where it's like, we talked about, Steele even mentioned this himself, like the eye discipline's not there. He was in a midseason rut.
He was, yeah.
And it did feel like Cody Simon was really on the rise at that point, and Steele was dipping a little bit. And I remember thinking in October, it's like at some point, Steele's going to snap out of this, and he never really did. And I think maybe that's when they evaluated after the season and did their self-scout and looked at the players in the future. That's my guess. Cody could have played more alongside Tommy than maybe they envisioned.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. And we know that Cody is the number one guy in that room now, and he should be. He played very well last year. But James kind of laid it on the line. He said, we want to come out of spring with 4 guys we think can play. And last year they had 3. The year before, I guess they had 2. 4 sounds right to me. So it's Cody. It's got to be C.J. Hicks. He has to make that jump. I think it's Gabe Powers and probably Arvell Reese. Nigel Glover was not asked about today either, and I don't think it'd be either of the freshmen. So unless Sonny is moving into the room, then obviously he becomes part of that 4. But absent of that, then I think it's on Arvell Reese to make a big jump this spring too.
I have a tough time coming out of this with James Laurinaitis. I didn't spend a lot of time with Matt Guerrieri, so you were over there for a good portion. But it seemed to me almost that if I was putting a pecking order right now, that Gabe Powers would probably be ahead of C.J. Hicks. Did you guys feel that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of did feel that way. Yeah.
So
not to put words in his mouth.
Yeah, but it sort of felt like there was a lot of conversation about how Gabe Powers was on the ascension last year, and C.J. Hicks needs to be consistent, and C.J. Hicks needs to be consistent. So
the C.J. played a lot more last year when the opportunities.
But I mean, that's a guy who's playing because he has to play. Mm-hmm. Music to my ears was James Laurinaitis saying that this spring they want these guys to play and make mistakes. That's what I've been sort of saying for the last few months. You have to find a way to get these guys those reps, and now you can do it in spring ball by just having Cody sit out. I think there's an opportunity there for both these guys, and all 3 of those that you mentioned, Arvell included, to really step up, and you're going to see them on the field the entire spring, whether there's Sonny alongside them or not, because Peyton Pierce can't even participate this spring. Garrett Stover is probably you're looking at him as a special teams guy this year. So this is a unit that has a ton of pressure on it because the rest of the defense is expected to be so good that like right now you are looking at a group that only has to be good this year. They don't have to be the best linebackers Ohio State's ever had, but if they're a weak spot, if they're bad, that is an issue. But like there's talent there. You just have to figure out a way to get the best of it. And James Laurinaitis, like listening to him talk, you can understand why he's a unbelievable recruiter, because I don't think anything he says is coming from a spot of sales.
I kind of felt that way about Matt Guerrieri as well. I think the big question that we got was like, can Matt Guerrieri come in and be an impactful recruiter for Ohio State? Like, that's got to happen. Is he going to take that mantle as he gets this full-time position at Ohio State? He's never had to do it at the Ohio State level. I don't know if it'd be the same when he's talking to the media as it is to a 17 or 18-year-old, but I was pretty impressed, Bill, by the conversation.
Yeah, I was too. I think it's interesting if I can like tie them both together, like the conversation around like their individual perspectives. And for James Laurinaitis, that is like the perspective of 3-time All-American, his pictures in the hallway a couple times in the rooms behind us here. And the value that has for the players in his room. He said Tommy Eichenberg especially told him last year, like, this means a lot coming from a guy like you. And for Matt Guerrieri, like, he doesn't have that kind of cachet, but he has cachet in the defense, which I find interesting. Obviously, he was here 2 years ago helping Jim Knowles install this thing and, like, helping get the safeties in particular, but really everybody, I think staff included, like, kind of, like, up to speed on what this thing is. But he's been in this defense for, I think, almost a decade now. He was, like, a GA and then rose through the ranks at Duke, and then he called this defense when he was a defensive coordinator at Duke. And I asked him about that, and he said there's value in knowing where it came from, because then that helps you understand like where there could be additional answers perhaps that Ohio State has not gotten into, or the opposite of that, like things that you might think work when he can tell you like, we tried that, it didn't work. Like we've been in this defense a long time, we know what works and what doesn't. And I think that's going to be really helpful as Ohio State tries to find improvement on the margins with this defense. It's like baseline going to be very good. Yeah. You know, can you get to elite best in the country? And I think that's where a guy like Matt Guerrieri helps. But I agree with you, Austin. He was like pretty impressive in articulating that, but also articulating like, you know, the value of the relationships he has with some of the guys in the building. You can see how that would resonate with the high school kids that he's going to go talk to now as a representative.
I asked Matt straight up. I said, Perry Eliano, I didn't name him, but it was like the number 2 ranked pass defense in the country. You have Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom, 2 of the best safeties in the country. That the former coach is not here because he wasn't getting the job done outside of this building. Like, how do you fix that? And, you know, his answer was somewhat generic, but it doesn't mean it's fake. But a lot of recruiting is just about excitement and about knowledge and about like a commitment from the coach to being there every day and talking every day. And you can definitely get the sense that as a young guy, he's got a lot of experience, more so than you'd expect from someone at his age. And he was at Duke for a decade. He understands what he's saying, but like, I'm struck by the dichotomy between these two. Like, they were both here as GAs. I mean, Guerrieri wasn't even a GA; he was an assistant.
Yeah.
But yet, when James Laurinaitis was here as a GA last year, we were still talking to him in media sessions because he's James Laurinaitis. And then there's like, you got like, this is not an offense, but like football nerd Guerrieri over here, right?
Different. They've arrived at these points via different.
Yeah,
routes.
like it's kind of funny, but they're both walking into a situation where Matt Guerrieri has maybe the best group of safeties in the country, and James Laurinaitis has maybe the least experienced linebackers in the country, and they are going to be viewed very differently this year. Mm-hmm. But then you have what you expect out of Laurinaitis as a recruiter, what Guerrieri has to deliver as a recruiter. It's an interesting.
Well, Guerrieri got the job, and then the next day he flew down to meet Caleb Downs, and they got him.
Day one.
Seal the deal.
That's right.
Instant impact, I think that's what they call that.
I believe that
Recruiter
is
of the year.
So, I don't know. Seems like he's on the right track. But it was great to hear his voice, and we'd seen him walking around the facility before, but he was not able to speak with us, not allowed. Now he can, and I thought that was pretty informative. So we'll have a lot more thoughts on that and the safety group and the linebackers coming as spring ball gets a little bit closer and the position previews ramp up even more on the podcast daily. So more coverage coming throughout the week as we get closer to spring camp in 2 weeks. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. These have been Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Byers Auto. We'll talk to you later.